And he said, Ajahn Brahm, I want you to come back to teach in my prison. And I said, look, I'm just too busy now, I just can't make it, I'll send another monk. No, he said, I want you. And of course I said, why me? Why not other monks? And then he said something which I will always remember. It's a wonderful piece of praise, but it also made me contemplate why I got this praise. He said, the reason we want you is this: I've been working in the prisons most of my life. I'm shortly to retire. And I've noticed a very unique thing, that all the prisoners who came to your class, when they were released, they never came back to jail again. None of them. Can you, I don't know what you're doing, he said, but can you please come back again? And that was actually from a prison officer who spent all his life in the jails looking after the criminals. And I thought afterwards, what had I done which was different? How come when I went into a prison, I saw these people, and once they finished their sentence, they managed to continue without needing to go back and get a proper life. And I realized that one of the things which I had done was this: whenever I went into a prison, I never saw a criminal. In all those years I've been in prisons, I never once seen a thief, or a rapist, or a murderer. I've never seen any of those. I've never seen a criminal. Never seen one. I've been to prisons in many countries in the world. All I've ever seen is a person who did a crime. I've seen a man who's stolen. I've seen a person who's raped. I've seen a man who was killed. But I've never seen a murderer. Do you understand the difference there? It's a teaching of Buddhism. It's just a psychological, just different way of looking at things. If you see the person and you think they're a murderer, they can never be forgiven. If you see a rapist, they can never be free. And of course you all know, they are not a rapist, they are not a murderer, they're not a thief. They're a person who has stolen. There's so many other things they have done in their life apart from that crime for which they've been put in jail. And why do you define and judge a person just because of those 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 disgusting things they've done? What about all the other things they've done in their life? And of course you should all know by now that story of the 2 bad bricks in the wall. I've told that story many times to those prisoners, and they realize that they're not criminals. They're not thieves. Yeah, they've got 2 bad bricks in their life, but they've got 998 good bricks as well, which means they don't need to destroy their life. When you see that they're more than that crime, then it's very easy to forgive. If they're just a murderer, then they don't deserve forgiveness. They need to be locked away because they may do the same thing again. But if you think and see that there's a people who've done a crime, not criminals, then you see there is a reason to forgive them. And because I saw the other part of those people in jail, because I never saw the crime they committed, I saw the other part of them. They saw that part in themselves. You know, when in prison you have to wear these prison clothes. You've got a number. You're treated as a prisoner. You've got bars on the window. Everything reminds you of the crime you did. They needed someone like me to remind them of the other part of their life. The part of their life which wasn't a criminal. And when I could remind them of that, when they could see that, they never needed to go back to prison again. They could be free. Why? Because they saw there was a huge amount in them worthy of forgiveness. The beautiful and good part. One of those stories which really made me emotional when I first heard it, there were 2 of the prisoners in my class. They were in there for selling drugs. And don't think that selling drugs is not really much of a crime. Those drugs create huge problems for families. They split up families, they kill people, they ruin people's lives. It's a terrible thing, to take drugs or sell drugs. So they had got into a little business of selling drugs. And they were in jail. And there was, close to this jail, there was a local primary school. And the principal of this primary school, if I had a hat, I'd take it off to her. She was a very courageous and wise principal. Because in primary schools, even like 10 or 11-year-old kids sometimes get involved in drugs in places like the US or Australia or UK. And she wanted to do something for her children to try and make sure they never get tempted to take drugs. Probably that happens in Malaysian schools, I hope. They're out there, they're available. If you really want it, you can get it in KL. And you've got to try and get your children to make sure they never go close to those things. So this principal wanted to have some sort of class program presentation. And instead of getting some professor from university or some sociologist who could talk all the theory but wasn't real, she invited 2 prisoners to come and talk to her children about drugs. 2 people who'd been there, taken the drugs, sold the drugs, and knew the pain of the consequences personally, and could actually teach these children what drugs are really about and what it does to you and how it ruins your whole life and family. That was a very courageous thing she did, because many of the parents would say, how would you allow prisoners and drug addicts to come and teach our kids? What are you doing? No, she was wise enough, because these were real people who'd actually been there and done that and could speak from personal experience. And so they spent the whole afternoon teaching many, many classes about what happens, really happens, not with facts and figures, but with the pain of their lives. You can imagine the effect that had on these children. But not just the effect on those children. One of those men, the prisoners, took me to this board, because in this primary school, the teachers had been so impressed with what these 2 men had taught their kids, that when it came to their art class, asked the kids to send little cards saying thank you to these 2 prisoners, and had all these cards from these 10 or 11-year-olds. And thank you so much. I'm never going to take drugs. Thanks, but I've heard how it hurt you. No way. Hope you get out soon. Love, Sarah. And all these little cards from these kids. And when these men showed me those cards, these hard prisoners, they were weeping. Tears were rolling down their face. Why? Because they'd done something. Done something good and wonderful to make sure that many, many of those children never follow the path that they got drawn into, that they would be free of that pain. Now that's not punishment. This is actually using your resources. And I say that if you have done that crime, you know more than anybody else what it's like. You should be the ones going into those schools or into those universities, telling what really happens when you do things like that. Then it is real and powerful. That's a huge effect. So instead of punishing, we actually make use of whatever we have done in our life and turn it around and make mangoes out of dogpoo. This is actually the Buddhist way of dealing with things. So, but coming back to how I was supposed to be structuring this talk, I've been wandering around a little bit. First thing about forgiveness, it's important to forgive, because otherwise that you are hindering your life, you are ruining somebody else's life. Forgive, forgive, forgive. And number 2, how you can learn how to forgive is see something in another person which is worth forgiving.